The telegram arrived at the Triple S Ranch on a sweltering August morning in 1882, carrying news that would change everything, though Morgan Sawyer had no way of knowing it as he unfolded the thin paper with dust-caked fingers. Morgan stood 6 feet tall in his weathered boots, lean and tanned from years working cattle across the Nevada Territory. At 27, he had transformed his father's failing ranch outside Winnemucca into something respectable, though the work never seemed to end. The telegram was from his sister Charlotte in Sacramento, brief and to the point as telegrams had to be. Their aunt had passed, leaving Charlotte with a girl who needed work and a fresh start. Could Morgan use help with cooking and housekeeping? The girl would arrive on the Thursday train. Morgan crumpled the telegram and shoved it in his pocket. He did not need help. What he needed was 3 more hands to mend fences and move cattle to the northern pasture before winter. But Charlotte had raised him after their mother died, sacrificing her own youth to keep him fed and clothed, and he could not refuse her this favor. Thursday came too quickly. Morgan rode into Winnemucca mid-morning, the town bustling with its usual chaos of miners, ranchers, and drifters. The train station sat at the eastern edge, a modest wooden structure that smelled of coal smoke and grease. He waited on the platform, hat pulled low against the sun, watching passengers disembark. She was the last one off, moving slowly down the steps with visible effort. Morgan recognized her immediately, not because he knew her face, but because of the way the conductor watched her with poorly concealed disdain, and because she carried herself with the defeated posture of someone who had endured countless cruel stares. Rebecca Porter was obese. There was no delicate way to phrase it, and Morgan suspected she had heard every ugly word the English language could conjure. She wore a simple brown traveling dress that strained at the seams, her round face flushed from the heat. Dark hair escaped from beneath her bonnet in damp tendrils. She could not have been more than 22 or 23, Morgan guessed, though her eyes held the weariness of someone much older. Morgan approached, removing his hat. "Miss Porter, I am Morgan Sawyer." Rebecca looked up, surprise flickering across her features. She had expected him, surely, but perhaps not the courtesy of a hat removal. "Mr. Sawyer, thank you for meeting me. I know this is an imposition." "No imposition. Charlotte said you needed work." Morgan reached for her carpet bag, noting how she flinched slightly, as though expecting him to withdraw the offer upon seeing her. "Ranch is about an hour ride. I brought the wagon." The wagon ride started in silence. Morgan focused on the road while Rebecca sat rigidly beside him, hands folded in her lap. The Nevada landscape stretched endlessly around them, sagebrush and scrub punctuated by distant mountains. Finally, Morgan felt compelled to break the quiet. "Charlotte mentioned you worked for my aunt." "Yes, sir. For 2 years, she was very kind to me." Rebecca's voice was soft, carefully modulated. "I am sorry for your loss. Did not know her well. She and my father had a falling out before I was born." Morgan glanced sideways. "What kind of work did you do for her?" "Cooking, cleaning, mending. Whatever she needed. I can handle livestock too if you need that. I grew up on a farm in Missouri before." She trailed off and Morgan did not press. "Mostly need cooking and such. I have ranch hands who help with cattle, but they are about useless in the house." "Place has gotten pretty rough." Rebecca nodded, relaxing slightly. "I can manage that." The Triple S Ranch sprawled across a valley, the main house a 2-story structure Morgan's grandfather had built from timber hauled over the mountains. It needed paint and the porch sagged on one end, but it was solid. The bunkhouse sat 50 yards away, smoke curling from its chimney. Corrals and a large barn completed the layout. Morgan helped Rebecca down from the wagon, trying not to notice her struggle. He carried her bag to the house, leading her through the front door into a parlor thick with dust. "Like I said, it has gotten rough. I have seen worse." Rebecca surveyed the room with a practical eye. "Where should I put my things?" "Upstairs, second door on the right. It was my sister's room. Hasn't been used in 5 years, so it will need airing out." Morgan set her bag by the stairs. "I will give you today to settle in. Supper is usually around 6. There are 4 ranch hands including myself." Rebecca's expression shifted to something Morgan could not quite read. 5 for supper. "I can do that." Over the following days, Morgan watched Rebecca transform the ranch house. She attacked the neglect with determined efficiency, scrubbing floors, beating rugs, washing windows until they gleamed. The kitchen, which had become his domain of burnt coffee and half-raw beans, began producing actual meals. Biscuits that did not require a hammer to break apart. Stew with vegetables that still had texture. Coffee that did not taste like mud. The ranch hands were less welcoming. Buck Patterson, the oldest at 45, ignored Rebecca entirely. The younger two, twins named Jim and Joe, made comments just loud enough for her to hear. "Wonder if we have enough food with an extra mouth like that. Better check the wagon springs." Morgan shut them down hard the first time he heard it, threatening to dock their pay, but he knew they continued when he was out of earshot. Rebecca endured it with a stoicism that made Morgan's chest ache. She never complained, never snapped back, just kept working. She was up before dawn, baking bread and frying eggs. She mended their clothes without being asked. She kept the house cleaner than it had been since Morgan's mother lived, but she was quiet, so terribly quiet. It was 2 weeks before Morgan heard her laugh. He had come back to the house mid-afternoon for a tool he had forgotten, entering through the kitchen door. Rebecca stood at the counter, rolling out pie dough, and had not heard him approach. On the windowsill above the wash basin sat a scraggly orange cat, one of the barn mousers who rarely ventured to the house. The cat was trying to catch a fly, batting at it with increasingly dramatic paw swipes. It lunged, missed, and tumbled backward off the windowsill, landing in the wash basin with an indignant yowl and a tremendous splash. Rebecca laughed. It was not a polite chuckle or a restrained giggle. It was a full, uninhibited belly laugh, bright and genuine and utterly joyful. The cat scrambled out of the basin, shaking water everywhere, which only made her laugh harder. She scooped up the bedraggled creature, still laughing, wrapping it in a towel. Morgan stood frozen in the doorway, the forgotten tool completely forgotten now. The sound of her laughter filled the kitchen like sunlight, transforming everything. Her whole face changed when she laughed, her eyes crinkling, her cheeks dimpling. She looked young and carefree and absolutely beautiful. The word startled him. Beautiful. But it was true. In that moment, Rebecca Porter was the most beautiful thing he had ever seen. She turned, still smiling, and spotted him. The laughter died instantly. Her expression shuddered, walls slamming back into place. "Mr. Sawyer, I apologize." The cat, it fell, and, "Do not apologize." Morgan stepped into the kitchen, surprising himself with the words. It was nice to hear. Rebecca's cheeks flushed darker. She busied herself with the cat, not meeting his eyes. "Did you need something?" "The fence pliers. I left them in the barn." The lie came easily. The pliers were in his saddle bag where they always were. "What kind of pie?" "Apple. I found some preserves in the cellar." "Sounds good." Morgan backed toward the door, then paused. "That laugh of yours, it is something special, Miss Porter." He left before she could respond, but the image of her stunned expression followed him all afternoon. That night, Morgan could not stop thinking about her laugh. It haunted him in the best possible way. He found himself wanting to hear it again, wanting to be the cause of it. The realization unsettled him. He had hired Rebecca out of obligation to Charlotte, taking her in because she needed work and he needed help. Pity, if he was honest. He had felt sorry for her, this girl the world had been cruel to. But somewhere in the past 2 weeks, without him noticing, pity had transformed into something else entirely. He started paying attention, really paying attention. He noticed how she hummed while cooking old hymns his mother used to sing. How she left scraps for the barn cats and talked to them in a gentle voice. How she read in the evenings, the same 3 books over and over because they were all she owned. How she flinched when anyone approached too quickly, braced for cruelty that had clearly been constant in her life. Morgan also noticed things about himself. How he looked forward to meals now, not for the food but for the chance to sit in the same room as her. How he found excuses to come to the house during the day. How he started shaving more regularly and brushing the dust off his shirts. One evening in late September, a cold snap sent everyone to bed early. Morgan was in his small office off the parlor, reviewing accounts by lamplight, when he heard glass shatter upstairs. He took the steps 2 at a time, arriving at Rebecca's door just as she opened it. "I am so sorry." The wind caught it and the latch broke and it shattered. Her words tumbled out in a rush. "I will pay for the replacement. I have some money saved and—" Morgan gently moved past her into the room. Cold air poured through the broken window. Shards of glass littered the floor and her bed. "Are you hurt?" "No, I was by the bureau when it happened." "Then that is what matters." Morgan assessed the damage. "I will board it up tonight and replace the glass tomorrow. You cannot sleep here, though, too cold in the glass." He trailed off, thinking. The house only had 3 bedrooms. His, Rebecca's, and his father's old room that he used for storage. "I can sleep in the kitchen by the stove," Rebecca said quickly. "It is warm there and I would not be any trouble. You will take my room." "I will sleep on the parlor sofa." "I could not possibly." "Miss Porter." Morgan turned to face her fully. "It is cold enough to freeze water tonight. You will take my room. That is the end of it." For a moment he thought she might argue further, then she nodded slowly. "Thank you, Mr. Sawyer." They cleaned up the glass together, Rebecca protesting that she could do it herself, Morgan ignoring her. He boarded up the window with planks from the barn while she gathered her night clothes. When he showed her to his room, she stood in the doorway looking uncomfortable. "I will wash the linens tomorrow," she said. "They are clean. I may be a bachelor, but I know how to wash sheets." Morgan smiled. "Get some rest, Miss Porter." He lay awake on the parlor sofa for hours, staring at the ceiling and listening to the house settle. Somewhere above him, Rebecca slept in his bed. The thought should not have affected him the way it did, should not have made his heart race and his mind conjure images of things that had no place in the thoughts of an employer toward his housekeeper. But Rebecca was not just his housekeeper anymore. Morgan did not know exactly what she was, only that she had become essential in a way that had nothing to do with clean floors and good meals. The next morning, Morgan rode into Winnemucca for glass. The general store owner, a gossipy man named Fletcher, raised his eyebrows when Morgan explained what he needed. "Heard you got yourself a housekeeper from California. Charlotte's doing, was it? My aunt's girl. She needed work." Right. Fletcher measured out the glass. "Folks are talking, you know. You and that fat girl alone out there. Might be some question your intentions." Morgan's hands clenched into fists. "My intentions are to run my ranch. Miss Porter keeps house. That is all anyone needs to know." "I am just saying, a man your age, unmarried, a woman living under your roof. People talk. Let them talk." Morgan paid for the glass and left before he said something he would regret, but Fletcher's words nagged at him during the ride home. He had not considered how it might look, Rebecca living at the ranch. In his mind, she was an employee, no different than the hands in the bunkhouse. Except she was different. She was a woman, and an unmarried one, and Morgan was starting to care about her reputation almost as much as he cared about her. He found her in the garden behind the house, pulling the last of the summer vegetables before the frost killed them. She had tied her hair back with a ribbon and rolled up her sleeves, dirt smudged across her cheek. She looked up as he approached, shading her eyes against the afternoon sun. "I got the glass. I will fix your window after I check the cattle. Thank you." Rebecca returned to her work, pulling carrots and placing them in a basket. "Mr. Sawyer, I have been thinking, if it would be easier, I could take my meals with the hands in the bunkhouse. I know having me in the main house is unusual. Did someone say something to you?" "No, I know how it must look. I do not want to cause you any trouble." Morgan crouched beside her, waiting until she met his eyes. "You eat in the main house because that is where you belong. The hands can think what they want, so can the town. You have done nothing wrong, and neither have I." "People do not always care about the truth." "No, they do not." Morgan picked up a carrot, brushing off the dirt. "But I am not going to let small-minded gossip chase off the best thing that has happened to this ranch in years." Rebecca's lips parted in surprise. "Mr. Sawyer." "Morgan." "I think we are past formalities, Miss Porter." "Rebecca." She said it softly, like an offering. "Rebecca." He liked the way her name felt in his mouth. "You are welcome here. Do not forget that." October brought the first real cold, frost painting the windows each morning. Morgan fixed Rebecca's window and she moved back to her room, though he found himself missing the odd intimacy of her sleeping in his space. The ranch work intensified as they prepared for winter, moving cattle to lower pastures, repairing buildings, stockpiling hay and firewood. Rebecca worked alongside the seasonal demands, preserving vegetables, smoking meat, making soap and candles. Morgan marveled at her competence, her quiet efficiency. She never complained about the workload, never asked for help unless absolutely necessary. She also remained carefully distant. Polite, professional, but distant. Morgan wanted to bridge that gap, wanted to see her smile again, hear her laugh. He started bringing her small things: a book from the lending library in town, a length of blue calico fabric the mercantile owner's wife recommended, apples from the orchard of a neighboring ranch. Rebecca accepted each gift with surprised gratitude, but also confusion, as though she could not quite believe he meant them kindly. It made Morgan wonder what her life had been like before, what cruelties she had endured that made simple kindness so shocking. One evening in mid-October, Morgan came in from a long day moving cattle to find the house filled with the scent of cinnamon and sugar. Rebecca stood at the stove, stirring a large pot, her face flushed from the heat. Jars of apple butter lined the counter, their contents glowing deep amber in the lamplight. "Smells incredible," Morgan said, hanging his hat by the door. Rebecca startled slightly. She always did when he entered unexpectedly, as though some part of her remained perpetually braced for danger. "I am making apple butter, the last of the preserves before winter." "Can I help?" She turned to stare at him. "Help? Unless you would rather I did not." "No, yes, you can help. If you want." She gestured to the jars. "These need to be sealed. If you could do that while I finish this batch." They worked in companionable silence, Morgan sealing jars while Rebecca stirred and tested the consistency of the apple butter. The kitchen was warm, almost too warm, and Morgan shed his vest. He caught Rebecca glancing at him, then quickly away, and felt something spark in his chest. "Where did you learn to make all this?" he asked. "My mother. She was an excellent cook. She used to say that a woman who could feed people well would always have value, even if—" Rebecca stopped stirring, her shoulders tensing. Even if what? Even if she had nothing else to offer. The words hung heavy in the warm air. Morgan set down the jar he was holding and moved closer, not crowding but near enough that she had to acknowledge him. Your mother was wrong. Rebecca's laugh was bitter, nothing like the joyful sound he had heard with the cat. You are kind to say so. I am not being kind, I am being truthful. Morgan waited until she looked at him. You are smart, Rebecca. You work harder than anyone I know. You are thoughtful and gentle, and you have a laugh that could light up the darkest room. Those things have nothing to do with cooking. Her eyes glistened. You do not have to say such things. I am not saying them because I have to. I am saying them because they are true. Morgan wanted to touch her, to take her hand or brush that strand of hair from her face, but he held back. I need you to know that. Rebecca turned back to the pot, blinking rapidly. The apple butter is ready. Morgan did not push, though he wanted to. Instead, he helped her finish the preserving, and when they were done, she gave him a jar to keep in his room. For cold mornings, she said, with fresh bread. That night, Morgan lay in bed with the jar of apple butter on his nightstand and admitted to himself what he had been denying for weeks. He was falling in love with Rebecca Porter. Maybe had already fallen. The realization should have terrified him, but instead it felt right. Inevitable. The question was what to do about it. Sunday meant a day of lighter chores. The hands usually rode into town for drinking and cards, leaving the ranch quiet. Morgan used the time for bookkeeping and small repairs. Rebecca baked and read and wrote letters to Charlotte. This Sunday in late October, Morgan found her on the front porch, wrapped in a shawl against the crisp air. She held a letter, her expression distant. Everything all right? Morgan asked, settling into the other chair. Yes. Charlotte writes that she is getting married, a banker in Sacramento. She sounds very happy. That is good news. Yes. Rebecca folded the letter carefully. She has been alone a long time. She deserves happiness. Morgan studied her profile. You have been alone too. That is different. How? Rebecca was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. People like me do not get the happy endings, Morgan. We get pity jobs and back bedrooms, and we are grateful for that much. The words hit Morgan like a physical blow. Is that what you think this is? Pity. I know it is. Charlotte told me in her letter before I came. She said you were kind and would give me work even though I was. She gestured vaguely at herself. Even though no one else would. Morgan leaned forward, elbows on his knees. That may be why I agreed to hire you, but it is not why you are still here. Rebecca looked at him sharply. What do you mean? I mean that you have more than earned your keep. You have transformed this place. If I paid you what you are actually worth, I would be broke. He paused, gathering courage. And if I am being completely honest, I look forward to seeing you every morning. I like talking to you. I like hearing you laugh. I like having you here, Rebecca, and it has nothing to do with pity. She stared at him, something between hope and fear flickering across her face. Why are you saying this? Because I think you should know. Know what? Morgan met her eyes steadily. That you matter, to this ranch, to me. You matter, Rebecca. A single tear rolled down her cheek. She wiped it away quickly, standing. I should check on the bread. She fled into the house, leaving Morgan alone on the porch. He had pushed too hard, revealed too much, but he could not bring himself to regret it. Rebecca needed to hear those things, needed to know she was valued for more than her labor. He just hoped he had not scared her away entirely. Dinner that night was quiet, Rebecca avoiding his eyes. Morgan respected her need for space, but his heart ached at the new wall between them. After the meal, he retreated to his office while she cleaned the kitchen. An hour later, a soft knock interrupted his review of feed costs. Rebecca stood in the doorway, hands clasped in front of her. Can I speak with you? Of course. Morgan gestured to the other chair. She sat carefully, perched on the edge as though ready to flee. This afternoon what you said, did you mean it? Every word. I do not understand why. Her voice cracked. I am not. I know what I am, Morgan. I know what people see when they look at me. Why would you be any different? Morgan wanted to go to her, to pull her into his arms and tell her everything he was feeling. Instead, he stayed in his chair and chose his words carefully. When you first arrived, I will admit, I saw what everyone else sees. Someone who did not fit what the world says is acceptable. But then I started actually seeing you. The way you gentle the barn cats, how you hum while you work, the concentration on your face when you read, that laugh, he smiled. God, that laugh, it is like music, Rebecca, pure joy. And I realized that everyone else is blind. They look at you and see only one thing, but they are missing everything that matters. What do you see? She whispered it, as though afraid of the answer. I see a woman who is strong and capable and kind despite the world giving her every reason not to be. I see someone who makes my house a home. I see the person I look forward to talking to more than anyone else. Morgan paused. I see the woman I am falling in love with. Rebecca's sharp intake of breath filled the small room. You cannot mean that. I do. You cannot love me. I am. Morgan, look at me. I am looking. He finally stood, crossing to kneel in front of her chair so they were at eye level. I am looking at you, Rebecca, all of you, and I love what I see. She was crying now, tears streaming down her round cheeks. I do not know how to believe you. Then let me prove it. Morgan reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away. When she did not, he took her hands in his. They were work-roughened and strong, and they trembled. Let me show you every day that you are worthy of love, not despite who you are, but because of it. I am afraid, she whispered. Of what? That I will believe you and then wake up and discover it was a dream, that you will realize you made a mistake, that. She broke off, shaking her head. That I will hurt you like others have, Morgan finished gently. I cannot promise I will never make mistakes, Rebecca. But I can promise that I will never be cruel. I will never use your heart carelessly, and I will spend every day trying to be worthy of your trust. Rebecca pulled one hand free to touch his face, her fingers ghosting across his jaw as though confirming he was real. I do not know how to do this. Do what? Be loved. Be wanted. I have been unwanted for so long, Morgan. I do not know how to be anything else. The broken honesty in her voice made Morgan's chest tight. Then we will figure it out together. We do not have to rush. I just need you to know how I feel, and that when you are ready, if you are ever ready, I will be here. Rebecca studied his face for a long moment, searching for something. Whatever she found must have satisfied her because fresh tears spilled over. I think I have been falling for you too. I tried not to. I told myself it was impossible, that you were just being kind, that I was foolish for imagining anything more. But when you smile at me, when you talk to me like I matter, I cannot help it. Morgan's heart soared. You do matter. I want to believe that. Then believe it. He squeezed her hands gently. Believe me, Rebecca. She leaned forward, resting her forehead against his. They stayed like that for a long moment, breathing the same air, existing in the space between what had been and what could be. Finally, Rebecca pulled back. I am terrified. So am I, Morgan admitted. Really, loving someone is always terrifying. You are giving them the power to hurt you. But it is also the best thing in the world. He stood, helping her to her feet. We will take it slow, no pressure, we will just see where this goes. Rebecca nodded, a small smile breaking through the tears. I would like that. That night, Morgan walked her to the stairs, their hands linked. At the bottom step, Rebecca turned back. Morgan? Yes, thank you for seeing me. He raised her hand to his lips, pressing a gentle kiss to her knuckles. Thank you for letting me. The next few weeks transformed everything while changing nothing. Morgan and Rebecca still maintained the routines of ranch and household, still observed proprieties. But now, stolen glances held meaning. Conversations during meals stretched longer. Small touches became frequent, hands brushing as they passed dishes, shoulders touching as they washed dishes together. Morgan courted her in the way of the frontier, where options were limited but intentions were clear. He brought her wildflowers that survived the early frost. He taught her to ride, patient as she struggled with her balance, never commenting on the difficulty her size created, just adjusting stirrups and holding the horse steady until she felt secure. He read to her in the evenings, novels borrowed from town, their chairs pulled close by the fire. Rebecca bloomed under the attention. The wariness never fully left her eyes, but it eased. She smiled more, laughed more. That glorious laugh that had captured Morgan's heart became a regular sound in the house. She began to trust that his affection was real, that he was not going to suddenly withdraw it or reveal it as a cruel joke. The ranch hands noticed the change. Buck remained silent on the matter, but the twins made comments that Morgan shut down immediately. "Boss is sweet on the fat girl," Jim said one morning at breakfast, loud enough for Rebecca to hear in the kitchen. Morgan stood so fast his chair crashed backward. "Get out." "What, we were just—" "I said get out, pack your things, you are done here." The twins stared at him in shock. "You are firing us over a joke." "I am firing you for disrespecting a lady under my roof. I told you once to watch your mouths. You did not listen. Now you are gone." Morgan's voice was steel. "You have until sunset." They left, grumbling about unfair treatment. Morgan did not care. He would work twice as hard himself before tolerating anyone treating Rebecca poorly. She met him on the porch as the twins rode off. "You did not have to do that." "Yes, I did." Morgan pulled her close, wrapping his arms around her. She fit against him perfectly, her head tucking under his chin. "I will not have anyone making you feel less than you are." Rebecca's arms came around his waist. "No one has ever defended me before. Then they were all fools." November brought snow, early and heavy. The ranch settled into winter routines. With only Buck to help, Morgan worked longer hours ensuring the cattle had access to water and winter feed. Rebecca kept the house warm, meals ready, coffee always hot when he stumbled in half-frozen one night. Morgan returned to find her asleep in the parlor chair, mending in her lap. She had clearly been waiting up for him. He stood in the doorway just watching her. Her face was soft in sleep, peaceful. Love swelled in his chest so strongly it hurt. He had never imagined loving someone this much, had never understood how it felt to want someone's happiness more than your own. Morgan started to back away, not wanting to wake her, but a floorboard creaked. Rebecca's eyes opened slowly, blinking in confusion before focusing on him. "You are back. I must have dozed off." She started to rise. "Stay." Morgan crossed to her, kneeling beside the chair. "Rebecca, I need to ask you something." Concern flickered across her face. "What is wrong?" "Nothing. Everything is right. That is the problem." He took her hands. "I know we said we would take things slow, and we can keep doing that if you want. But I also know what I feel, and it is not going to change. It is only going to get stronger." "Morgan, what are you saying?" He took a breath, letting it out slowly. "I am saying that I love you, completely. I am saying that I want you in my life not as a housekeeper but as a partner. I am saying—" He paused, heart hammering. "I am asking if you would consider marrying me." Rebecca's eyes went wide. "Marry you? I know it is fast. I know you might need more time. But Rebecca, I am 30 years old and I have never felt about anyone the way I feel about you. You are the first person I think of in the morning and the last one before I sleep. When something good happens, I want to tell you. When something is hard, I want you beside me. You are my best friend and the love of my life, and if you will have me, I will spend the rest of my days proving I am worthy of you." Tears streamed down Rebecca's face. "I am not a prize, Morgan. I am just— You are everything." He cupped her face gently. "Say yes, Rebecca. Please say yes." "People will talk. They will say you made a poor choice, that you could do better. Let them talk. Their opinions mean nothing to me. Your family. Charlotte already loves you from your time with our aunt. I have no one else whose opinion matters." Rebecca searched his face, looking for any hint of doubt or deception. Whatever she found made her start to cry harder. "I love you so much it scares me." "Is that a yes?" A laugh broke through the tears, that beautiful laugh that changed everything. "Yes. Yes, Morgan, I will marry you." Morgan surged forward, kissing her for the first time. It was clumsy and wet with her tears and absolutely perfect. Rebecca kissed him back hesitantly at first, then with growing confidence. When they finally broke apart, both were breathless. "I have never been kissed before," Rebecca admitted, cheeks flushed. "Then I am honored to be your first." Morgan rested his forehead against hers. "And your last." They married 3 weeks later in the small church in Winnemucca. Charlotte made the journey from Sacramento, bringing her new husband. The town turned out, some from genuine happiness, others from curiosity. Morgan heard the whispers, saw the judgmental looks. He ignored all of it, his eyes only for Rebecca. She wore a dress Charlotte had helped her make, deep green fabric that brought out the color of her eyes. Her dark hair was pinned up with flowers despite the winter cold. She was radiant, glowing with a happiness Morgan knew she had never expected to feel. When the Reverend asked if Morgan took Rebecca as his wife, he answered with a firm "I do" that echoed through the small church. When it was Rebecca's turn, her voice shook but never wavered. "I do." The kiss sealed their union to applause and a few scattered grumbles. Morgan did not care. He had just married the love of his life, and nothing else mattered. The reception was held at the ranch, the house decorated with evergreen boughs and ribbons. Charlotte had arranged for food from town, and neighbors brought dishes despite their reservations. It was a modest celebration, but genuine warmth filled the house. Buck, who had warmed to Rebecca over the months, played fiddle. Charlotte's husband proved surprisingly good on harmonica. People danced, including Morgan and Rebecca, though she protested she did not know how. "Neither do I," Morgan said, pulling her close. "We will fumble through together." They did fumble, stepping on each other's toes, laughing at their mistakes, but they moved together, and that was what mattered. When the music ended and people began to depart, Morgan and Rebecca stood on the porch, waving goodbye. Finally alone, Morgan turned to his wife. The words sent joy cascading through him. "Hello, Mrs. Sawyer." Rebecca's smile was incandescent. "Hello, husband." He kissed her again, deeper this time, feeling her melt against him. When he swept her into his arms to carry her over the threshold, she gasped. "Morgan, I am too heavy. You are perfect." He carried her inside, kicking the door shut behind them. "And you are mine." Their wedding night was tender and tentative, two people learning each other. Rebecca was shy about her body, but Morgan worshipped every inch of her, showing her with touch and words how beautiful he found her. When she finally believed him, when she let herself receive his love without fear or shame, it was transformative. Afterward, lying tangled together in the darkness, Rebecca traced patterns on Morgan's chest. "I never thought I could be this happy." "Get used to it." Morgan kissed the top of her head. "I plan to make you happy every day for the rest of our lives." "That is a bold promise." "I am a bold man." Rebecca laughed, the sound soft in content. "Yes, you are." Winter deepened, snow piling high, but inside the ranch house everything was warm. Morgan and Rebecca settled into married life with surprising ease. They worked side by side during the day. Morgan handling outdoor chores while Rebecca managed the household. In the evenings, they cooked together, read together, talked for hours about everything and nothing. Morgan loved the small intimacies of marriage, waking up to Rebecca in his arms, watching her brush her hair before bed, the way she hummed while cooking, unconsciously happy. The feel of her hand in his as they walked through snow to the barn. He also loved the bigger things. The way she challenged him when she disagreed, no longer afraid to voice her opinions. Her growing confidence, the way she held her head higher, smiled more freely. The trust in her eyes when she looked at him. In late January, Rebecca became quiet and withdrawn. Morgan noticed her rushing from the table in the mornings, pale and shaky. Worry gnawed at him until finally he asked if she was ill. Rebecca's hand went to her stomach, her expression uncertain. "I think I might be expecting." Morgan's heart stopped. "A baby, I am not certain, but the signs." "I think so, yes." He crossed to her in 2 strides, pulling her into his arms. "A baby. Rebecca, we are going to have a baby." "You are happy?" She sounded surprised. "Happy, I am thrilled." Morgan pulled back to look at her. "Are you happy?" Tears gathered in her eyes. "I am terrified and excited, and I cannot quite believe it is real." "It is real." He placed his hand on her stomach. "We made this, a piece of both of us." The pregnancy was confirmed by the doctor in February. Rebecca would deliver in late summer, he estimated. The news sent Morgan into a flurry of preparation. He started building a cradle from smooth pine. Rebecca sewed baby clothes from soft fabric Morgan bought in town. They argued happily over names, compromising on choices they both loved. As Rebecca's belly grew, so did her confidence. She bloomed with pregnancy, her skin glowing, her smile constant. Morgan fell more in love with her every day, marveling at the miracle of new life growing inside her. Summer arrived, hot and dry. Rebecca moved slowly in the heat, her body cumbersome, but she remained cheerful. Morgan hovered, worried about her comfort, driving her to exasperated laughter. "Women have been having babies since the beginning of time, Morgan. I will be fine." "You are not just any woman. You are my woman. I am allowed to worry." In late August, Rebecca went into labor. Morgan rode hard for the doctor and the midwife, then paced the parlor while they worked upstairs. Hours crawled by. He heard Rebecca cry out and wanted to rush to her, but the midwife barred the door. "Let us do our work, Mr. Sawyer. She is doing fine." Finally, as the sun set, a baby's cry pierced the evening air. Morgan froze, hardly daring to breathe. The midwife appeared at the top of the stairs, smiling. "You have a son, Mr. Sawyer, a big, healthy boy, and your wife did wonderfully." Morgan took the stairs 3 at a time. Rebecca lay propped against pillows, exhausted but radiant, cradling a tiny bundle. She looked up as he entered, tears streaming down her face. "Morgan, meet your son." He approached slowly, reverence filling him. The baby was red-faced and squalling, but he was perfect. Morgan sat carefully on the edge of the bed, reaching out to touch the tiny hand. It immediately grasped his finger, and Morgan's heart melted entirely. "He is beautiful, Rebecca, just like his mother." "He looks like you." She touched the baby's dark hair. "What should we name him?" They had debated names for months, finally settling on Matthew. Morgan looked at his son, his wife, his family, and felt gratitude so profound it brought tears to his eyes. Matthew Sawyer." He leaned over to kiss Rebecca gently. "Thank you for him, for everything, for saying yes to me." "Thank you for asking." She smiled, exhausted but happy. "For seeing me, for loving me." "Always," Morgan promised. "Always." The years that followed were full and rich. Matthew grew into a sturdy boy with his father's dark hair and his mother's laugh. 2 years later, Rebecca delivered a daughter they named Rose. She had Rebecca's eyes and Morgan's stubborn streak. The ranch prospered under Morgan's careful management. He expanded the herd, built a new barn, hired more hands who treated Rebecca with the respect she deserved, or found themselves unemployed. The Triple S became known as one of the best-run operations in the territory. Rebecca transformed from the quiet, frightened girl who had stepped off the train into a confident woman who ran her household with capable efficiency and loved her family with fierce devotion. She still faced cruel comments when they went to town, still endured judgmental stares, but they no longer had the power to wound her. She knew her worth. Morgan made sure of it. On their 5th anniversary, Morgan gave her a locket with pictures of their children inside. Rebecca gave him a new leather-bound journal for tracking ranch business. They gave each other hours of conversation and laughter, dancing in the kitchen to no music, making love with the easy intimacy of long familiarity. "You ever regret it?" Rebecca asked one night, lying in his arms. "Marrying me. I know your life would have been easier with someone else." Morgan propped himself up on one elbow, looking down at her. "Rebecca Sawyer, in 5 years of marriage, have I given you any reason to doubt how I feel? No, but no buts. You are the best thing that ever happened to me. You gave me a family, a real home, a reason to build something lasting. You are my partner, my best friend, the love of my life." "Easier," he laughed. "Maybe, but it would have been empty, meaningless. With you, every day matters. Every moment is richer. I would not trade our life for anything." Rebecca's eyes glistened. "I love you so much, Morgan. I love you too, forever." And he meant it. Through the years that followed, through the challenges of ranch life and raising children, through drought and harsh winters and all the struggles the frontier demanded, Morgan never wavered in his devotion. Rebecca was his anchor, his joy, his reason for everything. Matthew grew to manhood, taking over more ranch responsibilities. Rose married a young rancher from the next valley, giving Morgan and Rebecca grandchildren who filled the house with noise and laughter. More years passed, silver threading through their hair, lines marking their faces. On a summer evening in their 23rd year of marriage, Morgan and Rebecca sat on the porch watching the sunset paint the mountains gold. Their granddaughter played in the yard, chasing chickens and laughing. "Do you remember the day you arrived?" Morgan asked, taking Rebecca's hand. "How scared you looked stepping off that train. I remember thinking you would take one look at me and send me back to California." Rebecca squeezed his fingers. "I never imagined this. A husband who loves me, children, grandchildren, a real home. I never imagined it either." How one laugh could change everything. Rebecca smiled. "My laugh. That laugh. I heard you laugh at that ridiculous cat falling in the wash basin and I was lost. I knew in that moment I had to hear that sound for the rest of my life. You are a sentimental fool, Morgan Sawyer." "I am a fool in love with you, Rebecca Sawyer. Always have been. Always will be." She leaned against him, his arm coming around her shoulders. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the sun sink lower, their granddaughter's laughter floating on the evening air. Morgan thought back to that August day in 1882 when a telegram changed his life. He had hired Rebecca out of pity, out of obligation to Charlotte, never suspecting what would unfold. But from the moment he heard her laugh, really laugh with pure, uninhibited joy, he had been caught. That laugh had led him to love, and that love had given him everything. His ranch thrived, but that was not what made him rich. His children honored him, but that was not his legacy. No, his true wealth, his real legacy, was the woman beside him. The woman who had been unwanted by the world but who he had chosen every day, who had chosen him back. "What are you thinking?" Rebecca asked, tilting her head to look at him. "That I am the luckiest man who ever lived." "Liar. You are thinking about supper." Morgan laughed, the the sound joining his granddaughter's giggles and the evening birdsong. "You know me too well, wife. I should. I have been studying you for over 20 years. And what have you learned?" Rebecca was quiet for a moment, her expression turning serious. "That love is not about what someone looks like or what the world thinks. It is about seeing someone truly, understanding them deeply, and choosing them completely. You taught me that, Morgan. You saw me when no one else would. You loved me when I could not love myself. You made me believe I was worthy. You were always worthy, I just helped you see it. You did more than that. You gave me a life I never dreamed possible. You gave me forever." Morgan pulled her closer, kissing the top of her head. "And you gave me purpose. Before you, I was just going through motions. You made everything mean something." The sun touched the horizon, blazing orange and red. Their granddaughter ran up to the porch, breathless and dirty, demanding a story before bed. Rebecca scooped her up with practiced ease, heading inside to wash little hands and feet. Morgan followed, pausing in the doorway to look back at the land he had built his life on. The S ranch, his home, his legacy. But it was only meaningful because of who shared it with him. Inside, Rebecca was already settling their granddaughter at the kitchen table with milk and cookies, launching into a story about a brave princess and a kind dragon. Her voice wove through the house, warm and familiar. Matthew arrived with his family, bringing noise and chaos. Rose and her husband would come tomorrow, adding to the blessed disorder. This was what mattered, not what people in town thought, not whether Rebecca fit some impossible standard of beauty. This family, this love, this life they had built together through hard work and devotion, and the simple choice to keep choosing each other every single day. Later, much later, after everyone had gone home or to bed, Morgan and Rebecca climbed the stairs to their room. The house creaked and settled around them, full of memories. Rebecca sat at her vanity, brushing her hair, the ritual unchanged from their early days. Morgan watched from the bed, still marveling after all these years. "Come to bed, wife." She set down the brush and crossed to him, settling into his arms with a sigh of contentment. "Today was good. Today was perfect. Matthew is doing well with the ranch. He has good instincts. He learned from the best." Morgan stroked her hair. "Though I am not ready to hand it over entirely." "You have years left in you yet, old man." "Old? I am only 50. Rebecca laughed, that laugh that had captured him so long ago. It had changed over the years, deepened and matured, but it still held that same joyful quality that made his heart sing. 50 is old for ranch work." "I will show you old." Morgan rolled them over, Rebecca shrieking with laughter as he kissed her neck, her jaw, her lips. They made love with the comfortable passion of long marriage, knowing each other's bodies better than their own. Afterward, tangled together in the darkness, Rebecca drew patterns on his chest, a habit she had never broken. "Morgan, do you think we get another lifetime together? After this one?" He considered the question seriously. "I do not know what comes after. But I know I will love you there too, wherever there is. This love is too big to end with death." "That is what I think too." She yawned, already drifting toward sleep. "I will find you in whatever comes next, and I will be waiting." Morgan kissed her forehead. "Sleep now, my love." She murmured something incoherent. "Already gone." Morgan held her close, listening to her breathe, feeling the solid warmth of her against him. 23 years, and he still marveled at the gift of her presence, still thanked whatever force had brought her to his ranch on that August day. The obese girl hired out of pity had become the center of his universe. His wife, his partner, his forever. And it all started with a laugh. More years passed in this way, seasons cycling through their eternal dance. The ranch changed hands to Matthew, while Morgan and Rebecca became the beloved grandparents. the matriarch and patriarch of a growing family. Their love story became legend in the area, told to prove that true love saw beyond the surface, that real beauty lived in the soul. On their 30th anniversary, their children and grandchildren threw a party that filled the house and spilled into the yard. The whole town came, even those who had once whispered cruel things. Rebecca, now gray-haired and dignified, held court like a queen, her family surrounding her with obvious devotion. Morgan watched her from across the room, struck by how beautiful she remained. Not despite her size or her age, but because of the light that radiated from within her. The confidence and joy she had earned through years of being loved well. She caught him staring and smiled, that special smile reserved only for him. Morgan crossed to her, taking her hand and pulling her up. "Dance with me. There is no music. When has that ever stopped us?" They swayed together in the middle of the chaos, their children and grandchildren dancing around them. Matthew caught his wife and spun her. Rose waltzed with her husband. The grandchildren created their own wild version of dancing, shrieking with laughter. "This is everything," Rebecca said softly. "Everything I never thought I could have." "This is just the beginning," Morgan promised. "We have years yet. Decades, God willing." God was willing. They had another 15 years, years filled with more grandchildren and even great-grandchildren. Years of watching their family flourish, their legacy secure. Years of sitting on the porch and remembering, of laughing at old stories and creating new ones. When Rebecca finally passed, peacefully in her sleep at 67, Morgan grieved deeply. But he also celebrated the extraordinary life they had shared. 45 years of marriage, a lifetime of love. He followed her 2 years later, his heart simply giving out one morning as he sat in the chair they had danced around so many times. His last conscious thought was of her laugh, that beautiful laugh that had changed everything. Their children buried them side by side on a hill overlooking the ranch, beneath a spreading oak tree they had planted together their first spring as a married couple. The headstone was simple. Morgan Sawyer, 1855–1927. Rebecca Porter Sawyer, 1860–1925. Together forever. And they were. In the hearts of their descendants, in the stories told and retold around family tables, in the very bones of the Triple S ranch that flourished for generations. The love between a cowboy who saw past the surface and a woman who taught him the true meaning of beauty lived on. It started with pity. That much was true. Morgan had hired Rebecca because his sister asked, and because he felt sorry for her, but it had not stayed pity. From the moment he heard her laugh, really heard it, he had begun to fall. That laugh led to love, and that love created a family, a legacy, a forever. In the end, that was what mattered. Not how it started, but what they built together. A life of meaning. A love that transcended every obstacle. A forever earned one day, one choice, one laugh at a time. The Triple S Ranch still stands today, run by the great-great-grandchildren of Morgan and Rebecca Sawyer. In the family museum, carefully preserved, sit artifacts of their life together. Morgan's first ledger filled with his careful script. Rebecca's recipe book, pages stained and worn. Their wedding photograph, showing a tall cowboy and his smiling bride. And if you listen carefully on summer evenings when the wind whispers through the oak tree on the hill, you might hear it. A woman's laugh, joyful and free, echoing across the years. The laugh that changed everything. The laugh that built a love story for the ages. A laugh that proved once and for all that true beauty, real love and lasting happiness come not from fitting into the world's narrow definitions, but from finding someone who sees you truly, loves you completely, and chooses you always. Morgan Sawyer had been that someone for Rebecca Porter. and she had been his someone in return. Together, they proved that the best love stories are not about physical perfection or societal approval. They are about two people who find each other against the odds and build something beautiful from that connection. Their story, born in the dust and heat of 1882 Nevada, rippled forward through time, touching everyone who heard it. It reminded people that we all deserve to be seen, to be valued, to be loved. That our worth is not determined by our appearance, but by the content of our character and the size of our hearts. Rebecca had a heart as big as the Nevada sky. Morgan had the wisdom to recognize it. Together, they created magic. And so it was that the obese girl, hired out of pity, became the most cherished wife a cowboy could ask for. Not because she changed who she was, but because someone finally loved her exactly as she was. And in being loved so well, she blossomed into the fullness of herself, proving that love, real love, sees what matters and treasures it forever. The end of their mortal story was just the beginning of their legend. The beginning of a legacy that would remind generations to come that the greatest adventures start not with perfection, but with choosing to see the extraordinary in what others overlook, with listening for the laugh that could change everything, with having the courage to love beyond boundaries and build a forever on the foundation of that brave, beautiful choice.